It is 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Your car makes a sound it has never made before, and then it does not start at all. You sit in the driver's seat, in your own driveway, and you already know what this is going to cost before you even call anyone. $1,400 for the repair. You do not have $1,400. You have $180 in checking and 9 days until payday. This is not a story about being irresponsible. This is a story about what happens to almost anyone when there is no buffer between a bad day and a real crisis. You put the repair on a credit card at 24% interest. Not because it is smart. Because it is the only option in the room at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. The card approves it instantly. The relief lasts about 4 seconds. Then the math starts. $1,400 at 24%, paying the minimum, takes almost 3 years to pay off, and costs an extra $520 in interest by the time it is done. A car problem that lasted 1 week becomes a debt that follows you for 3 years. This is what happens without a cushion. This exact scene happens to millions of people every single year. Not because they are careless. Because nobody ever showed them the number that would have changed this entire night. That number is $10,000. Now picture the same night, the same car, the same sound in the engine. Except this time there is $10,000 sitting quietly in a savings account. The phone call to the mechanic is still stressful. But it is a $1,400 problem. Not a 3-year problem. You pay the $1,400 from savings. You do not touch the credit card. You do not calculate interest. You do not think about this repair again after Thursday. The account is lower. The stress is gone. The difference between these 2 nights is not luck. It is one number. This video is about that number. Not how to become a millionaire. Not some complicated investment strategy. Just $10,000, sitting in an account, and the very specific ways it quietly changes almost every decision in your life once it exists. Most people think $10,000 is about the number itself. It is not. It is about what the number allows you to stop being afraid of. Every fear connected to money starts to lose its grip somewhere around this exact figure. So let's go back to the beginning. Not the car. Before the car. Back to the moment someone decides that this number is worth building, one uncomfortable choice at a time, long before it exists at all. You are 23. You make $2,600 a month after tax. Rent, food, and bills take almost all of it. You have never had more than $300 saved at once. You decide, on an ordinary Sunday, that this is the year that changes. You do not have extra money lying around. So you find $85 a month by making small changes. Cooking 4 more meals at home. Canceling one subscription you forgot you had. Switching to a cheaper phone plan. Nothing dramatic. Just $85. You open a savings account completely separate from your checking account, at a different bank, so it is slightly less convenient to move money out of it. That tiny bit of friction turns out to matter more than almost anything else you do. You set up an automatic transfer of $85 for the day after each paycheck. Not a reminder. An automatic transfer. The money leaves before you can decide you would rather spend it on something else. The first transfer clears while you are asleep. You wake up and check the account out of curiosity more than anything. $85. It looks small. It is small. It does not feel like the beginning of anything. It is the beginning of everything. Your roommate spends $85 that same week on a concert ticket and a new pair of shoes. Neither choice is wrong. They are simply different choices, made by 2 people the same age, earning close to the same amount, heading in 2 very different directions without realizing it yet. By the second month, the transfer happens without you thinking about it at all. This is the part nobody tells you about saving money. The hardest part is not the first transfer. It is making it boring enough that you stop noticing it. At month 3, the balance is $255. You get a small tax refund, $310, and instead of spending it, you add it directly to the account. Balance, $565. It is starting to look like something real instead of loose change. You do not tell your friends about this account. It is not a secret out of shame. It is simply not a conversation that comes up naturally over dinner. Nobody asks, "How's your emergency fund coming along?" At a casual hangout. At month 6, the balance crosses $1,000. This is the first real milestone, and it matters more than the dollar figure suggests. $1,000 is the number that ends most small emergencies before they ever become debt. That same month, your friend Alex has a $600 dental emergency. He puts it on a card he is still paying off from last year. You do not say anything about your own account. You just help him find a payment plan with the dentist instead. You increase the automatic transfer to $120 a month after a small raise. The raise could have become a nicer phone or a few extra dinners out. Instead, it became $35 more heading into the account every single month. At month 9, the balance is $1,850. It has not been a dramatic year. Nobody would notice anything different about your life from the outside. That is exactly the point. The changes that matter most rarely look like anything at all while they are happening. You add a side project that fits around your job, tutoring 2 evenings a week, $180 a month extra. All of it goes straight into the account. Not half. All of it. The habit has become the identity by now, not a task on a list. By the end of year 1, the balance is $3,200. Not $10,000 yet. Not close. But something has changed that has nothing to do with the number. You have become someone who does not spend everything they make. That shift is worth more than the balance itself. Year 2 begins with a decision to keep going rather than stop and enjoy the progress. This is the hardest part of the entire journey, the part where the initial motivation has worn off and only the habit is left to carry you forward. You track the goal visually, a simple thermometer chart taped inside a kitchen cabinet, colored in a little more each month. It sounds almost childish. It works better than almost any app you have tried, because you see it every single day without needing to open anything. At month 14, the balance crosses $4,500. Your car needs new tires, $410. You pay from the account without hesitation, and you replace the amount over the next 2 months. The account absorbs the hit instead of becoming a new debt. That is the entire purpose of the number. Your coworker Jamie has the same tire problem the same month and puts it on a store credit card with 27% interest, opened on the spot for a small discount that will not come close to covering the interest over the next year. At month 16, the balance is $5,600. Something starts to shift internally around this point. The account stops feeling fragile. A single bad week can no longer wipe it out completely. That feeling, more than the number, is the real milestone. You get invited to a destination wedding that will cost close to $900 with travel and a gift. In the old version of your life, this would have gone on a card. Instead, you plan for it 3 months out, saving separately, and pay for the whole trip in cash. At month 19, a work opportunity comes up in another city. It pays better, but it means 2 months without income while transitioning. In the past, this would have been impossible to consider. Now, with $6,800 saved, it becomes a real option instead of a fantasy. This is the part almost nobody talks about when they talk about savings. It is not just about surviving emergencies. It is about being able to say yes to opportunities that require a gap, a risk, a leap that people without a cushion simply cannot afford to take. At month 21, balance $7,400. You negotiate your salary at a performance review for the first time in your life, asking directly for what the market actually pays. You are not afraid of the answer being no, because a no does not threaten your ability to pay rent next month. The raise comes through, $340 a month more. Half goes to lifestyle. Half goes straight into the account. This is the pattern that repeats every single time an increase shows up from this point forward. Split it, never absorb all of it into spending. At month 23, balance $8,100. Your friend Alex, still working off the dental card from over a year ago, mentions he wants to leave his job but cannot risk the gap in pay. You listen. You do not offer unsolicited advice. You simply understand exactly what he means. Alex is not lazy or bad with decisions. He is trapped by a gap that never got built. The exact same situation as you, 2 years earlier, before the Sunday afternoon decision. The only real difference between his story and yours is 18 months of a habit. At month 25, balance $9,050. You stop checking the account every $1,050. You stop checking the account every single day. Not from losing interest, but from a growing confidence that it will simply keep growing whether you watch it constantly or not. The relationship with money has become quieter, steadier. A small crisis hits that month anyway, a $310 vet bill for an unexpected illness in your dog. You pay it without a second thought. The account absorbs it, dips slightly, and continues climbing the following month like nothing happened. At month 26, balance $9,400. You are close now, close enough that you start doing quiet mental math on slow evenings. 2 more paychecks. Maybe less if the side project picks up. The number that once felt abstract now feels a few weeks away. You keep the automatic transfer running exactly as it has for over 2 years. No excitement. No countdown app. Just the same $120, now $155 after the raise, moving quietly on the same schedule it always has. At month 27, balance $9,780. A friend mentions a flash sale on a laptop you have wanted for over a year. In the old version of your life, this would have gone straight on a card. You close the tab. The goal is $220 away. Nothing competes with that right now. At month 28, balance $9,960. $40 away from a number that took over 2 years to build. You do not rush it. You let the next automatic transfer do what it has always done, quietly, on schedule, without needing your permission each time. The transfer runs on the first of the month, as it always has, at midnight while you sleep. You are not awake for the exact moment it happens. Nobody ever is. That has always been the strange, quiet nature of this particular kind of milestone. You wake up on an ordinary Wednesday. You reach for the phone the way you do every morning. You open the banking app out of nothing more than habit. And there it is, $10,004.15. You read it once. You read it again. There is no confetti animation. No notification banner celebrating a milestone. Just a plain number on a plain screen, achieved through 28 months of nothing more dramatic than repetition. You do not feel the rush you expected. You feel something quieter, something closer to relief settling into your chest, the way a held breath finally releases after a very long time. You get up. You make coffee, the same way you have for 2 years, the cheaper grounds, the same mug. Nothing about the physical morning is different. Everything about how the morning feels is different. You do not immediately spend any of it. This surprises you slightly. The number does not feel like permission to celebrate. It feels like a foundation finally finished, ready to build the next thing on top of. You text your sister, the only person who has known about this goal from the beginning. 2 words, hit it. She replies with 3 exclamation points and a question about what you'll do with it. You genuinely do not know yet. That not knowing feels good for the first time in your life. You go to work like any other Wednesday. Nobody at the office knows what happened at 7:12 a.m. on your phone. Nobody needs to. The milestone belongs entirely to you, in a way almost nothing else in your life does. At lunch, a coworker mentions being stressed about an unexpected $600 expense that week. You listen. You do not mention your own account. You simply feel, for the first time, a kind of calm around a conversation that used to make your own stomach tighten too. That night you sit with the number for a while, not spending it, not moving it, just letting it exist. 28 months of $85, then $120, then $155, automatically transferred, barely noticed, has become 5 figures sitting in an account with your name on it. You open the graph view for the first time in months. The line is almost flat at the start, barely visible, and steepens gradually near the end as raises and side income layered on top of the original habit. It looks unremarkable. It represents almost everything. This is the number. This is the morning. Now here is what actually changes, in concrete, specific terms, the moment this exact figure exists in someone's life. The first change is sleep. Specifically, the absence of the 2 a.m. spiral about money that used to happen roughly once a week. That spiral requires uncertainty to survive. $10,000 removes most of the uncertainty it was feeding on. The second change is how job conversations feel. 6 months after hitting the number, your manager assigns an unreasonable workload without discussion. You push back calmly, directly. A year ago you would have simply absorbed it, afraid of what pushing back might cost you. The third change is how car trouble feels. 8 months after hitting the number, the same car from the opening scene needs another repair, $680 this time. You pay it from savings without a single moment of stress and refill the account within 6 weeks. The fourth change is what happens with medical bills. A minor surgery requires a $2,200 deductible payment. In the past, this would have meant a payment plan stretched over a year with interest. Now, it is a transfer, a slightly lower balance, and a return to normal within a season. The fifth change is negotiating power and everyday purchases. You buy a used car with cash, $9,200, and negotiate the price down by $600 because you are not financing, not desperate, and completely willing to walk away if the number is not right. The sixth change is your relationship with risk. A friend offers you a spot in a small business venture requiring $2,000 upfront. You can actually consider it now, weigh it honestly, without the decision being made entirely by fear of losing money you cannot afford to lose. The seventh change is how family emergencies land on you. Your mother needs help covering a $1,500 gap one month. In the past, you would have had to say no, painfully. Now you can say yes without it threatening your own stability at all. The eighth change is how landlords and leasing offices treat you. Applying for a nicer apartment, the property manager notices the healthy account balance during the background check and approves you instantly, without the extra deposit usually required for thinner financial profiles. The ninth change is your posture in salary negotiations for a new job entirely. You turn down a lowball offer without panic, because the account behind you means you can afford to wait for the right offer instead of accepting the first one out of fear. The 10th change is quieter than all the others. You stop resenting people who have more than you. Not because you suddenly have everything you want, but because the specific anxiety that used to fuel that resentment has genuinely eased. The 11th change is travel. You take your first vacation in 3 years that is entirely prepaid, no credit card balance waiting when you return, no dread mixed into the memories. $900 saved separately, spent guilt-free. The 12th change is how insurance decisions get made. You raise your car insurance deductible to lower the monthly premium, something financial advisors always recommend and almost nobody without savings can actually afford to do, because the deductible has to be covered if something happens. The 13th change is confidence in small daily choices. You stop checking prices obsessively at the grocery store out of fear and start checking them out of habit and preference instead. The difference feels small. It is not small. The 14th change is how arguments about money at home shift. A partner brings up an unexpected bill. The conversation is about logistics now, which account to pull from, instead of panic about whether the bill can be paid at all. The 15th change is your relationship with your own phone. The banking app notification used to trigger a small flinch. Now it produces almost nothing at all, emotionally, because there is rarely bad news left in it to deliver. The 16th change is what you do with the next $10,000. It does not take 28 months this time. The habit is built. The transfer is automatic. The second $10,000 arrives in 14 months, because half the psychological work has already been done. The 17th change is a genuine willingness to invest some of it. With the emergency fund fully built, additional savings finally move into a retirement account and a simple index fund, money that was too afraid to leave cash before, now free to grow somewhere else. The 18th change is how you talk to younger coworkers starting their careers. You mention the number, casually, the way someone once should have mentioned it to you. Not as a lecture. As a fact worth knowing early. The 19th change is your relationship with bad news in general. A round of layoffs hits your company. Colleagues panic visibly. You feel the same concern anyone would, but underneath it is a floor that was not there 3 years earlier. The 20th change is the simplest and the most important. You stop being afraid of your own bank account. That single shift, more than any dollar figure, is the actual thing that $10,000 was always building toward. Alex, from the dental card story 2 years earlier, is still not there. Not from a lack of intelligence or effort. He simply never made the Sunday afternoon decision the same way you did, and one small gap became a 5-year pattern. Alex's car breaks down that same year, almost the exact scenario from the opening scene of this story. He puts it on a card again. The pattern repeats, not because he is a different kind of person than you, but because the habit was never built. You do not judge Alex for this. You understand it intimately, because you know exactly what his checking account looked like before your own Sunday afternoon decision. The only difference between his story and yours is the habit that got built afterward. You mention the automatic transfer idea to him, gently, without pressure. Not a lecture. Just a sentence. Start with whatever feels almost too small to matter. He is quiet for a moment. He says he might actually try it this time. Jamie, from the tire shop story, is still paying off the store credit card 2 years later, at 27% interest, for a $410 repair that has now cost over $700 in total. The original problem was small. The financing made it enormous. This is not a story designed to make anyone feel judged for where they are right now. Almost everyone starts exactly where Alex and Jamie are. The only question that matters is whether a decision gets made to change the pattern, starting on some ordinary Sunday. Your sister, the one who knew about the goal from the start, finally starts her own savings habit after watching yours unfold for 2 years. She begins with $40 a month. It feels almost embarrassingly small to her. You tell her that is exactly how every single one of these stories begins. A study on financial stress found that most people cannot cover an unexpected $400 expense without borrowing or selling something. That statistic is not about intelligence or discipline. It is about how few people were ever handed a simple, boring system early enough to matter. The gap between Alex's life and your life did not start with income. You made close to the same salary for most of these years. The gap started with one automatic transfer, set up on one ordinary Sunday, that he never got around to setting up himself. None of this required a high income. It required a decision, made once, protected by automation, repeated without much willpower for a little over 2 years. That is the entire mechanism. It is almost disappointingly simple. David, a coworker, has a salary nearly double yours and no savings at all, because every raise for a decade went straight into a slightly bigger apartment, a slightly nicer car, a slightly more expensive routine. Income was never the missing ingredient for him either. You do not feel superior to David. You simply notice, quietly, that the habit mattered more than the paycheck the entire time, in every single comparison you have watched play out around you over the last several years. This is the actual lesson buried inside this story. The number is not really about $10,000. It is about becoming, quietly and gradually, the kind of person who does not spend every single dollar the moment it arrives. That kind of person ends up okay in almost every version of the future, regardless of what the economy does, what the job market looks like, or what unexpected thing happens on some ordinary Tuesday night in a driveway. The people who never build this habit are not worse people. They are simply one automatic transfer behind, on a decision that is always available to make, starting on whatever day this video happens to be watched. 3 years after the original $10,000, the account is $34,000. Half remains as the emergency fund. The rest has moved into a retirement account and a simple index fund, growing in a way the cash version never could. The habit that started with $85 a month has scaled naturally alongside every raise since. Nobody had to force this. The rule was simple from the very beginning: never let the whole raise become lifestyle. That one rule did almost all of the work by itself. You buy a modest home 2 years after the milestone, putting 12% down instead of the minimum, because the extra cash reserve made a slightly larger down payment possible without draining the emergency fund underneath it. The mortgage payment is smaller because of that down payment. The smaller payment means more room to keep saving. The original $10,000 is still, in a very real sense, quietly working 4 years later, in a completely different form. Alex, watching all of this from a distance, finally sets up his own automatic transfer that year. $50 a month. It feels like nothing to him. You remember feeling exactly the same way about $85, 4 years and one lifetime ago. You do not need to check in on Alex's progress constantly. You know, from direct experience, that the account will either become something or it will not, largely based on whether the transfer survives the first 6 uneventful months. 5 years after the original milestone, your net worth crosses $60,000 across all accounts combined. The car from the opening scene has long since been replaced, paid in full, in cash, with no financing office ever entering the conversation. The version of you from the opening scene, sitting in a dead car at 11 p.m. with $180 to your name, would not recognize how ordinary this all feels now. Not because the number is enormous. Because the fear that used to live underneath every financial decision is simply gone. You still drive a modest car. You still shop with a list. Nothing about the daily texture of your life looks dramatically different from 5 years ago. The difference lives entirely underneath the surface, in the accounts nobody else can see. A younger cousin asks you for advice before starting their first job. You do not mention investing strategy or complicated terms. You tell them one sentence: open a separate savings account this week and automate $50 a month, no matter how small it feels. That sentence is the entire video, compressed into 18 words. Everything else, every scene, every number, every character in this story, exists only to prove that this one sentence actually works, given enough time. The math does not require a high income, a finance degree, or a lucky break. It requires one decision, protected from your own future impulses by automation, given enough uneventful months in a row to compound into something real. $10,000 is not the end of a financial story for anyone who builds it. It is the beginning of the part where money stops being a source of fear and starts becoming a quiet, boring tool that works in the background of an otherwise ordinary life. The car in the driveway from the opening scene is long gone now, replaced, paid off, unremarkable. What it represented, though, the fragile version of a life with no buffer at all, is the thing that changed the most, permanently, the moment the account crossed 5 figures. This did not require luck. It required $85 a month, an automatic transfer, and 28 ordinary, forgettable months. That is genuinely the whole story. That is genuinely available to almost anyone watching this right now. If you are watching this with $0 saved right now, this is not a reason to feel behind. Every single number in this video started at exactly 0, on some ordinary, forgettable day that nobody marked on a calendar. Open a separate account this week. Automate whatever amount feels almost too small to matter. $20, $50, $85. The amount matters far less than the decision to make it automatic, so your future self never has to decide again. In 6 months, check the balance. It will look small. That is expected. It is exactly how this story looked at month 6 as well, and it did not feel like the beginning of anything back then either. In 2 years, give or take, depending entirely on your own amount and your own raises along the way, you will very likely be looking at your own version of this exact number, on your own ordinary Wednesday morning. This is how your life changes when you save $10,000. Not with fireworks. With sleep that comes easier, decisions that feel less afraid, and a Tuesday night car trouble that stays exactly what it should have always been. A $1,400 problem, and nothing more.